Another day, another Mega Man game. After the BS that was Mega Man and Base, I am not even going to try to hide the fact that I was pretty apprehensive before going into Mega Man 9. Now, I've been told and reassured that Mega Man and Base is the low point of the entire series. However, that doesn't change the fact that in this relationship, the Mega Man series should be arrested for domestic battery. So I'm going to go into this cautiously. Now, before we begin, I would like to extend a thanks to my buddy Waffles Minion for helping me deal with the nightmare that was Mega Man and Base. But it's time to move on. So let's get into the next review. This is Mega Man 9.
Since Mega Man and Base, the original classic Mega Man sort of dropped off the face of the earth. Or Capcom, that is. The original Mega Man and Base was released in 1998, and Mega Man 9 was released in 2008. During this time, a plethora of spin-off games were being released, and the classic Mega Man was sort of forgotten, again, to Capcom. At some point, Keiji Inafune wanted to make the next classic Mega Man as a throwback to the super old school, as retro games became more popular on virtual consoles. And holy shit, he wasn't kidding. Mega Man 9 is back to being 8-bit, with quite a few changes to the overall gameplay structure, which I'll be getting into shortly. In the meantime, get a load of this box art. These fuckers went back just a bit too far. Our story starts off with more robots going on a rampage. This time though, Dr. Wily claims that he's not at fault, but it was actually Dr. Light. He shows off a video proving his innocence to the whole world, and Dr. Light is eventually arrested. So, are we just going to ignore the fact that Wily is still an international criminal, has wreaked havoc upon the world, and has likely killed millions? Yeah? Oh, alright then. Mega Man goes in to stop the robots, eventually finding evidence that Dr. Wily had framed Dr. Light. At this point, I'm not going to even pretend to be surprised. No, really, you have to be a special kind of stupid to even think the outcome would be any different. But this story does do something that's very thought-provoking. All robots have an arbitrary expiration date in which they are eventually scrapped after passing that date. What does this mean for the lives of the robots? We already know that robots have emotions, so wouldn't they naturally feel angry that they'll be killed at some point anyway? Will robots get some sort of civil rights, led by their own civil rights leader fashioned after Martin Luther King Jr.? Is his name Martin Man?
Don't be ridiculous. This is a Mega Man game after all. Story is not this series' strong point. So, let's just send our robots out to fight and die like we're the US government with our soldiers in the Middle East.
Since Mega Man 9 is a throwback to the 8-bit games, we get our old selection screen where we can choose any robot master to face in any order. Of all the return of forms that this game has, this is probably one of the most welcoming. Nevertheless, we have robot masters to kill and weapons to talk about, so let's get into them. First up, Concrete Man. His concrete shot is a little tricky to time right, but upon hitting something it forms a block that you can either jump on to get some more height, or it becomes an effective yet horrible coffin for enemies. Up next is Jewel Man. Jewel Man as a robot master is, for lack of a better word, pathetic. But his Jewel Satellite is the best freaking shield in the series. And if you remember my hard-on for the junk shield in Mega Man 7, that's a pretty high bar to reach. Third is Magma Man. His Magma Bazooka fires in 3 directions and can be charged, which will wreck enemies quickly. Fourth, we have Tornado Man. He's a pretty simple robot master, but his Tornado Blow is a screen nuke that will clear out mini-bosses pretty efficiently, especially this asshole. Fifth on the list is Galaxy Man. The Black Hole Bomb is very useful for taking out enemies in some of the most obnoxious places, which is quite nice. Next is Hornet Man. This robot master can get annoying without the Magma Bazooka, but the Hornet Chaser he gives you not only homes in on enemies, but it brings items to you, which is especially helpful if you're unsure if there's an item on a path leading to death up ahead. The 7th robot master is Plug Man, and probably the most racially insensitive of the bunch. I mean, come on. The plug ball weapon is pretty handy to have too, since it will slide along on walls and floors and hit enemies with very little energy use. It completely forgives the fact that the name Plug Ball sounds like something you would shove up your ass. And finally, we have Splash Woman. At last, a female robot master, but why just one? And why did it take until 2008? Well, the planning team did come forward with the idea, and Hornet Man was going to be changed to another female robot master named Honey Woman. Weirdness aside, Splash Woman's laser trident is my most used weapon right next to the Jewel satellite, since it uses very little energy, is quite powerful, and in most cases it will tear through walls and enemies as it goes across the stage. There's also a 9th robot master by the name of Fake Man, whom disguised himself as Dr. Light in Dr. Wily's videotape. He can be fought by playing the time attack option that was available as DLC. Sadly, he has no weapon for Mega Man to use, yet an ability to disguise as enemies and sneak by them like the spy from Team Fortress 2 wouldn't have gone amiss. As for the gameplay mechanics, many of the newer features in later Mega Man games are no longer present, but let's go over what returns first. Auto Shop is back and you can buy some upgrades, but there's only a small selection of items this time around. E-Tanks make a return, which after Mega Man and Bass, this return is a goddamn blessing. And even Rush returns with a couple functions from Mega Man 3, including Rush Coil and Rush Jet. This now gets me into the problems with Mega Man 9, as well as something that's been affecting games that I think needs to be addressed. First, the biggest problem that Mega Man 9 has is regression. A throwback is one thing, but Mega Man 9 cuts out solid mechanics like the charge shot and the slide. These abilities are small, but they had a huge impact on combat, as well as made the Mega Buster a more viable weapon. The amount of upgrades has been drastically shortened to the bare minimum, but what pours salt into the wound is the Wily Fortress in this game. Mega Man 9's Wily Fortress is like sitting on a cactus after losing a bet. It's so freaking easy to die with the amount of spike pits and low-hanging ceilings that will gimp your jumps, and what makes it worse is that it falls back to something similar to classic Mega Man logic. You can either continue after a game over, or you can save your game and go buy items at the shop at the cost of starting the Wily Fortress from the beginning. And the Wily Fortress stages aren't the shortest of stages either, especially since they're filled with shit like this. Well, fuck that. Now let me address the problem I hinted at earlier, which relates to regression. There are some franchises that fall back to an old school formula in an effort to capture nostalgia. The two series that come to mind right away are Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog. After a few 3D games, both series decided to revert to a 2D formula, or in Sonic's case, alter between 2D and 3D. Now, if you're a fan of these type of modern games trying to recapture a 2D formula, then I won't blame you, since there's a kind of charm that they have that I too enjoy. What I'm against is the fact that technology allows us to make more complex and detailed-oriented games in a 3D environment, but we keep going back to a formula that should have long since been rendered obsolete. Whenever I see a 2D game in this place and time when big companies have more than enough resources to give us a game with gameplay and a story that can be more immersive in 3D, I get a bit of an empty feeling as though there's something missing. It becomes more glaring when the 2D games will, in many cases, feature less content than a 3D game, but the asking price is still the same. In the case of Mega Man 9, it's foregoing the option of progressing forward for the sake of moving backwards to capture nostalgia. Just imagine for a second that there was a full 3D classic Mega Man game that functioned a little like Sonic Adventure or maybe Super Mario Sunshine. Wouldn't that, to a Mega Man fan, be kick-ass? Okay, yeah, there's Mega Man Legends, but it's still a sub-series focused on a completely different Mega Man, while classic Mega Man is falling back to a dated style. Don't believe me? There's a fucking sprite flickering option in this game. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate Mega Man 9, I just find it moving backwards, which is affecting the quality as a whole. If you enjoy Mega Man 9, then more power to you, seriously. But I can't find enough here to justify the game as something worth getting when the 16-bit games have more to offer than this.
Even though I didn't like Mega Man 9 very much, at least I can still say that it was a breath of fresh air compared to Mega Man and Bass. But for now, I'm going to see you guys in the next review when we take on the last of the classic Mega Man games, Mega Man 10. And I'll see you there. This has been Regnilla wishing you to kick ass and not get your ass kicked. Take care, people.